So thank you very much, Amit, again for the kind invitation. It's a great pleasure to meet all of you. I'm looking forward to meet in person because I've never been in India. So I hope that we will meet around the world, but at a certain point come to find you because I'm following very, very close how the situation is expanding in India related to autoinflammatory disease. I had the honor to be part of the effort of your effort on collecting the data on autoinflammatory disease in India. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to work all together, and thank you to give me the opportunity today to, let's say, tell you about our history, what we did in Europe for this field of rare diseases in the last 10 years. These are my disclosure. I have to say that Eurofever Registry had some restricted grant from Novartis and Sobi. That was very important, of course. This story started from some years ago when we were able to obtain a grant, a European grant, in the field of rare diseases. At that time, as you can understand, the autoinflammatory disease was just at the beginning, and it was clear that the field was increasing a lot in terms of number of diseases and so on, number of patients, but indeed very rare diseases. And so we came out to the idea in Europe, in the Pediatric Rheumatology European Society, the press society, that in the working group for autoinflammatory disease, at that time I was the coordinator for the working group, that would be very important to have a common registry to share experiences on these rare diseases. And that was the case, and we built up a registry. We decided to build up a registry in which all the diseases could be included. I just briefly go through just to see that, of course, in the registry you are able to include, of course, the demographic features, and there is a growing list of diseases. So we start with just 12 diseases at that time, but now every year we have to include many other conditions, and of course a lot of genes with all the variants that we are getting directly from the Eurofever database. And we decide, even if this could be a little bit tricky, to indeed have a registry that is rather detailed. So you can see here that there is the possibility to go into detail in the possible manifestation. So the idea is to try to give a good idea on indeed what the patient has. We have now also, in the first part of the registry, was a cross-sectional registry in which we collected the information from disease onset to the inclusion in the registry. But now we became more ambitious, and I will show you some example. And now the idea is to use the registry to follow our patient in a longitudinal way, because this is the only way to really see in an observational study how we can treat, how the treatment that we give to our patient behave during the time, and also underline the safety and efficacy in the long run of this treatment. And so also the adverse events and so on. This could not be possible, as you know, without the incredible, let's say, organization of Printo, that is, as you know, is held in Genoa, in my institute, and run by Nicola Ruperto. And of course, thanks to Printo, that is the technical arm of Eurofever, we were able to reach the big Printo community and to reach a lot of centers that have very rare diseases and very rare patients. So we started the adventure in 2009. Now we have more than 11 years, almost 12 years of life. And at the beginning, we were a little bit worried on the possibility to recruit patients. And indeed, now the results, it's really important. We have more than 4,050 patients with the different autoinflammatory disease, monogenic and also multifactorial. And you can see here, of course, Western Europe and Central Eastern Europe. Europe is the most, let's say, represented part of the world, but of course we have several patients from Southern Eastern Mediterranean countries, South American, and some patients also from other countries, a lot of from Armenia, and also some patients from India. And I hope that everyone can also participate in this international effort if you want. Of course, you are more than welcome to include also in this international registry your patient to collaborate in an international way. These, of course, these are the most relevant disease, a relevant number of patients. You can see here patients with different conditions, multifactorial and monogenic. And of course, it's interesting to see where the patients are, how many centers see patients, and which is the demographic distribution of the different disease. Also the impact, the numeric impact of the different condition, rare condition. But of course, what is more important is to try to understand and to study something new, and to address some questions. And so what we have learned in these last 12 years. What we have learned is published, and we had the lucky, we were lucky enough to have a number of publications on very good journal, I have to say, in the field of rheumatology that let's say I hope help the community, the world community in the world to have more insight in many aspects of autoinflammatory disease. And we collect a huge number of patients. And I tell you some example. I will go very, very quick, just to not, I will not go into detail in this published paper, but just to give an idea on the philosophy and what we did in the first years. The first paper was done by Natasha Toplak, that from Slovenia came to Genoa to analyze the first data some years ago. And it was very interesting to see, for example, at the very beginning, the first paper on the delay of diagnosis in our diseases. This is something that I'm sure you are facing the same problem. And it was clear that there was a clear delay of diagnosis. You can see here the age of onset and the age. Sorry, I have to go. Okay, here. Okay, maybe here you can look at my arrow. You can see the disease onset and disease diagnosis, a huge delay. And of course, we were able to reduce this delay according to the decade of birth, but there is still a relevant delay in our capability. And that has been improved a lot. These are unpublished data for the four main autoinflammatory diseases. You can see here in the first years of the registry, we had a mean delay of 7 years in the old patient. That has been reduced a lot to 1 year, 2 years in the last 7 years. That means that the community starts to be, thanks to the different initiatives, start to be more aware of this condition, and also the possibility to have genetic tests more easily really help a lot. And so we are doing, I think, a good job in terms of recognition. And so I give you just a very quick, brief idea on how we proceed. So the idea in the registry is that everybody that include patients in the registry can ask and can propose a study, and can propose and can have the data from the registry to analyze the data according to a given project. So this is really open to everybody that is included in the network. And so the philosophy is to share data and to make this data availability to different researchers and colleagues. for example, Sezaozen were able to understand how in pediatric FMF is the distribution and the severity of the disease, and she was able to understand that indeed the environment and living in Turkey or South Mediterranean country give a burden of the disease, also in the pediatric patient. Terhar and where a student from the Netherlands was able to start to study the first data coming from the treatment in this patient. This is a paper that has been cited several times and give the first idea in a bunch of patients on the different treatment throughout the registry. Helen Lachman, as you know, a great expert of traps, could take advantage of the first and larger registry on traps and described in this paper in unnecessary rheumatic disease the difference between adult and children. Again, Bénédicte Nevin in France were able to identify and to describe the first cohort, a larger cohort of CAPS patients from the Eurofever registry, like Jos Frankel, again from the Netherlands, the cohort of hyper-IgD. So, I mean, that was quite interesting to give the possibility to all the colleague. This is Hermann Dirkeschick from Germany, that at that time, some years ago, described the largest area of chronic recurrent multifocal osteomyelitis. Of course, I don't go into detail in this paper because they are available, but just to give an idea of the philosophy and also of the registry, and also of the fact that you have to provide good evidence and good clinical manifestation, good data to provide valuable, let's say, information on the different clinical manifestation of the disease and so on. Then another aspect coming from the registry is the possibility to have some new clinical insights and also tools for the diagnosis and the management. This is rather important. One tools that we created thanks to the Eurofever registry and in collaboration with Isabelle Conepo in Paris was the elaboration and the validation of a score that you know is the only score that we have for autoinflammatory disease, that is IDI score. This is was performed in collaboration with and validated with the Eurofever registry patient. And also we provide, these are two residents of mine, Riccardo Papa and Matteo Doglio, that were able to identify a sort of web-based collection of the genotype phenotype association. This is online, and they did an incredible job. Some tables, I don't know if you can see, and they describe for each disease, this is for TRAPS, for example, for each mutation that has been, let's say, included in the registry, you can go to the table of the also online and also link it to the Eurofever website, and you can see how many patients has been described in the registry, which were the clinical features and the response to treatment, and also some complications. So if you have a given genotype, you can go there and to see the other patient described in Eurofever, how they behave. So that could be of some usefulness. Also, Erkan Demirkaya from Turkey, now in Canada, was able to propose a very interesting, let's say, project in which he was willing to validate and to see the accuracy of the different criteria, diagnostic criteria for FMF. And what we observe, he observed that indeed, when we were able to identify, let's say, verify these criteria in a context of different diseases, different, let's say, also population, the accuracy of these criteria were not that high. And this was really an important point, because the great advantage to include in a single registry all diseases in which we, let's say, collect the information with the same information, with the same clinical manifestation, it's rather important, because that means that we can, let's say, make a confrontation and make a study to see if there is indeed the possibility to distinguish one disease from the other, and which are the clinical manifestations that really are specific for one disease in respect to the other. And so what we did for the first step, together with Silvia Federici in our group, we set up a first proposal of some preliminary classification criteria for periodic fever, based on the statistical combination of real patient, so not on the judgment of expert, but on the data coming from the multivariate analysis from different experts. And she was able to establish the first preliminary criteria. Then we went on, and as you know, we had a very, let's say, ambitious project to build up new evidence classification criteria, with the help in this way also of many experts from all over the world. And this was a very important and very difficult task, a very long task that involved a lot of experts, geneticists and clinicians, and with evaluation of true patients from the registry and the judgment of the patient, and also the statistical analysis for the choose of the best classification criteria in terms of accuracy. That was a great project, again from another project founded by European Union, and that has also a parallel project, very important, taken care of, that was taken care by our geneticist, that was to establish the pathogenicity of all the variants that for autoinflammatory disease that has been included in the Untitled database. So there was a huge work from our geneticists to try to classify all the variants described in fevers in clearly pathogenic, likely pathogenic, variants of unknown significance, or benign variant. That was a great job, and at the end of the day, these are, as you know, published very, let's say, quite in 2 years ago, the new classification criteria coming from the Eurofever registry, and for the first time, we have some criteria that make together, join together the genetic, the clinical feature more related to each disease, and the molecular analysis. As you know, all the diagnostic or classification criteria so far were just clinical criteria. That was a little bit nonsense that the genetic disease do not have also the genetic test as an important factor. And in these new criteria, you can see here, there is the possibility to include the genotype and also the clinical features. These are the new PFAPA criteria that has been described with this system. And the other aspect, as I told you, was the classification of the variants. This is important because this is the paper coming out from this project, and this is what you can find now in the Unfevers database. You know, the Unfevers database is very important for everyone that is working in the field of autoinflammatory disease. You go to the database and you can find the different mutation that has been described so far for each disease. And now you can find also the pathogenicity. So there is the judgment among the experts on the level of pathogenicity of each condition. This is very important, of course. So the combination of clinical criteria and genetic criteria is very important to establish the real classification of the patient. And this is a very recent paper that we published some weeks ago, again in collaboration with Ellen Lachman, that was the main investigator, and on traps. That was a very good exercise to see in a large, I think the largest cohort of traps patients ever published, more than 226 patients with TNF mutation. We wanted to see how they behave according to their genotype, according to the classification. You can see how many variants we were able to identify. And we, let's say, we divided the patient in different subgroups: patient with pathogenic variant, patient with VUS variant of unknown significance, or patient with benign or likely benign condition variants. And what was quite interesting, I hope you can see, is when we combined the possibility to fulfill the Eurofever criteria with the genotype. You can see here, if I am able to use again okay, here you can see here that if you in the real life patient for real life, you can divide on the fact if they fulfill the Eurofever criteria or not. I'm sorry. You can see here that the behavior, in terms of behavior of a clinical response to the treatment, is rather different, because you can see here, for example, that in this group that has a pathogenic mutation, all the patients respond quite well to anti-IL-1 treatment. You can see here. I'm sorry, but okay. You can see here. All patients respond quite well, complete response to anti-IL-1 treatment. The same are for those patients that have variant of unknown significance but fulfill the Eurofever criteria. Most of them respond very well to anti-IL-1 treatment, but it's not the case to the patients that do not fulfill the Eurofever criteria. They use much more colchicine. For example, the patient with R92Q variant that respond less well to anti-IL-1 treatment and also to anti-TNF, and they respond much better to colchicine. So that means that this population is rather different from the classical population of traps with pathogenic mutation. And so we have to really, we show that we have to really pay attention to the significance of R92Q or some variant with low penetrance.
Sorry, Dr. Marco, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We are coming close to time, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just the last 3 minutes. So I mean, the example here is also we started to have the longitudinal registry, and I have to say that the longitudinal registry, the study of the longitudinal registry, is very interesting. I do not have time because I have to go quickly. I thought that I had 30 minutes, but I go quickly just for the discussion, I think, and I will go quick. And this is a first example of the longitudinal study that we are doing, and the granularity. For example, our idea is to see how is the impact of colchicine in FMF in our Italian patient using the Eurofever registry. So the idea is also that you can use the registry also for national study. So if you want to, for example, we decide in Italy to use the platform of Eurofever also to have national study. That give you the example of how the granulosity that you can obtain. For example, with the longitudinal study, we can see how many patients are in complete response, in complete control of the disease with using colchicine, how many of them are still some episode, one episode for year, for example, or more than one episode for year, that is cold kissing resistant. And also you can see also the drug, the cold kissing dose, because you know that the cold kissing has to be start with a given dose, and then that are reported here. But the recommendation say that if the patient do not respond, you have to increase the dose of 0.25. And using the registry, we were able to understand that many of the patients, especially children, that do not respond properly, that still have fever episode, are undertreated. So they did not, let's say, increase the dose. We keep the dose low. And so I think that this is an example how to the registry can help. So going to in conclusion, I think that I hope that I show you how the registry can provide information, can have an impact on the general knowledge of our diseases. This is the number of publication, number of co-authors, and the total citation that we have, the impact of the registry. That is still ongoing, give us the possibility to analyze rare diseases and compare different conditions, give us the possibility to elaborate evidence-based classification criteria, and the recruitment, of course, is still ongoing, and there will be new diseases, and the longitudinal part will be very important. I thank all the people working with us, of course, in Genoa for this huge, and all the collaborators around the world, because of course this is a public and general effort. Thank you very much.